So Ben Shapiro spoke about the economy on his show. I don't know the full context to this. This clip blew up on Twitter, and I couldn't find like the longer version of it. But I think he's responding to some sort of question from the audience here, and you're going to see there's a reason why this clip went viral. Take a look.
The fact is that if you had to work more than one job to have a roof over your head or food on the table, you probably shouldn't have taken the job that's not paying you enough. That'd be a you problem. Also, it is not true that the vast majority of people in the United States are working two jobs. It just is not true. According to the census statistics, a small but steady number of American workers have more than one job because either they need extra income or because they want to gain more experience or explore different interests. There's a recently released U.S. Census Bureau report, and apparently what it found is that approximately 8.3%, this is as of 2013, so it's actually lower now, 8.3% of workers had more than one job. So this again is just a lie. It is also this bizarre idiocy that you can dictate to the economy what the economy ought to do. Every time everybody tries to dictate to the economy what it ought to do, the economy fights back because it turns out the aggregate knowledge of the market economy knows more than you do. I know, shocking.
I love that last argument. It's just so silly. Like, the whole idea is we're not trying to craft a system that properly caters to the needs of the people. It's that the people have to arbitrarily fit themselves into this system, and if it happens to fuck over, like, most of them, tough cookies. Well, what a horrendously dumb ideology that I want no part of whatsoever. They treat the market like it's a god. Ooh! What has the market dictated to us today, good sir? I would not... They almost act like it's some sort of superstitious thing that they can't... In no way, shape, or form can you tweak it or change it. You're simply a slave to the whims of the market. Yes, the market! This is like goofy, what I call market fundamentalism. It's like this hardcore anarcho-capitalist idea that, like, you know... Nothing can be changed, nothing can be tweaked, nothing can be fixed. There can be no rules and regulations because the holiness of the glorious market overrides everything. Yes, yes. It's just so dumb. That's so stupid. People have been tweaking markets forever. I mean, look at every other developed country. When you have, free healthcare at the point of service, universal healthcare, single-payer system. When you have free college, when you have child labor laws, that's all rules and regulations that tweaks the marketplace. And you can do that. Now, of course, you have to weigh the pros and cons in various situations, but sometimes it's really clear what you should do, and sometimes it's not so clear. There's gray area issues, but there's also some very black and white issues that now we look at and we go, oh yeah, that one was common sense. Like, for example, child labor law. He's saying, hey man, only 5% of people work two jobs. That's a weird thing to, like, downplay, as if that's not a lot. 5 out of every 100 people working two jobs or more? That's a pretty big number to me. But furthermore, what he's not telling you is 13% of Americans are either unemployed or what's called underemployed, which means they're like super overqualified and they're making less than they should be making, or they're not working as many hours as they'd like to be working. So 13% of Americans are unemployed or underemployed. 5% of Americans work two jobs or more. Half of American workers make $30,000 a year or less, and 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, which, in those points, they directly address the core of his argument, which is, hey man, this is an individual problem. This is not a systemic problem. And I submit to you, it is the exact opposite. If you have to work two jobs to put food on the table and survive, no, that's not a you problem. What that means is the market is not valuing your labor at a rate that's moral or decent or ethical or reasonable. So, we should probably change the rules to make it so that the market does value your work at that level. Other developed countries, like in the Scandinavian countries, they have unionization for everybody. So the rates, there is no minimum wage there, but the reason there's no minimum wage is because everybody makes significantly above the minimum wage because there's collective bargaining for everybody. So the idea that we can't fix this problem and you just have to accept that it's an individual problem and not a systemic problem. Well, that's proven that that's not true because other places have addressed the problem of low pay and having to work multiple jobs by having collective bargaining for everybody. Another way to fix that problem is to make the minimum wage a living wage so that when you work a full-time job, you do make enough money to survive. Now, this is where he chimes in and goes, but hold on, you can't do that because then there's negative consequences like the unemployment rate ticks up. That's why you can't raise the minimum wage to a living wage, to which I respond, that's incorrect because they've done studies, and in various states where they've increased the minimum wage, there hasn't been an uptick in unemployment. So he would just be factually wrong on that point. What he has is a theory. What we have is the empirical data on our side. And one of the things that always stuck out to me when somebody makes a claim is it universal? So what he's saying is, when it comes to the economy, if you have to work 2 or more jobs, that's not a systemic problem, that's a you problem. You probably shouldn't have taken that job which pays you so little. That's what he's saying. But take that to its logical conclusion. Let's say everybody took Ben Shapiro's advice here. What would happen? Then there would be nobody for all of those jobs that pay not great. And the economy would not be able to function. Because probably the overwhelming majority of those jobs are absolutely necessary in order for the economy to continue to function. So if everybody took the advice Ben Shapiro is laying out here, the economy would collapse. So maybe that value, that labor, is incredibly important. And we can decide, as a society, to treat it as such. I mean, it's the way that these guys talk about, casually, serious flaws in the economy really shows you they're working backwards from their conclusion, which is the status quo is fine, business as usual is wonderful, and if you have a problem, it's on you, 100%. And that's like a very childish way of looking at the situation. It's literally like saying better things aren't possible. Just suck it up. I mean, just imagine this mindset applied at any other time in human history. Imagine that mindset applied when we had feudalism or when we had, monarchies everywhere, authoritarian leaders everywhere. Like, what do you mean? That's just how it is. There's no problem with the system. It's a you problem. But for some reason, he thinks somehow that's like reasonable today, even though that thought process would have been like abysmally stupid 50 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever, however far back you want to go. So I'm here to tell you, no, it's not a you problem. It's not a you problem at all. There are millions of working poor people in this country. And that does not reflect poorly on them. They are working full-time jobs and still not making enough money to survive. That's an indictment on the system. And there was a great tweet yesterday in response to this where I believe it was Internet Hippo. And he said something like, because the conservatives pundits say this all the time. Well, if you guys would just stop being lazy and get a job, then you wouldn't. Oh, you got a job? Well, if you just got another job or job that paid more, then... So you keep moving those goalposts to keep shitting on the workers and acting like it's a problem with them, when no, it's a problem with the system, and it can be fixed.